So what are we going to talk about today? This is going to be a fun one.
Yes. So this is going to be the SaaSification of our world. And by that, I mean the charging or the charging for everything, a monthly recurring or annual recurring cost. And so I just want to preface this episode by saying that I saw, of course, my my news stream is TikTok, and there's been a bunch of videos lately about how GM, Cadillac, and Chevy are going to be charging in the future, starting in 2028, for you to connect your phone to the entertainment system. And so to do navigation on the screen, to play, to take phone calls, reply to text messages, etc. And so this really struck a chord for me because there's been some chatter out there about how private equity has been buying up a lot of houses, and with the intention of just making the housing market more of a rental market. and just got me thinking about how we have to pay a monthly fee for everything. And so just to contextualize this, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I bought music on vinyl, and then I bought a whole bunch of music on cassette tapes, and then CDs, and then then we ripped the CDs into audio files, and then I stole music with Napster and LimeWire, and then now I pay for streaming services, and I think I must have 5 different music streaming services. And what I realized is I started going through all of those monthly subscriptions that I pay. So I pay Apple, so that gives me iCloud and for storage, and I can use Apple Music. I pay for Audible for audiobooks, which is through Amazon. We pay Amazon Prime. Of course, Google for storage and for Gemini, OpenAI for AI, Dropbox for storage, although I hope to shut that down. I pay LinkedIn for the premium. I pay YouTube because I have a YouTube channel. Of course, Netflix, Disney Plus, Paramount, and so I mean. It's just a ridiculous amount of monthly recurring
that is easily forgotten about. I must throw in, right? Once you sign up, kind of out of sight, out of mind, and $4.99 a month, when you do it, 10x, 20x adds up.
Totally. And so, and when I log into Lyft and Uber, now they're trying to get me to do a monthly subscription, and where does this end? And I know why. Companies like it because it's a revenue stream that they can monetize, and they can it's a consistent revenue stream versus I sell a product once, like I bought my chair, and now I don't need to buy my chair again until it breaks in 5 or 10 years. But so I understand that. So it's hard to predict and forecast what the demand for chairs or beds or whatever will be, but I think we've gone too far.
When we first talked about this topic, one of the things that came to mind, something very basic, is I have a gym membership at Fitness 19, which is the gym downtown Danville. And right now I pay a flat monthly fee no matter what. Yeah. I wonder how models like that, if and how they're going to pivot to usage based. Are you going to then just pay every time you go work out at the gym versus paying a flat month? Like, that's something that's like a very old school, I think I pay like $15 a month or $20 a month. Things like that. I wonder if they're going to start testing. To me, it's usage-based pricing, right? Usage-based pricing on steroids.
Yes, exactly. And if you look at, this is true for Apple, Google, OpenAI, they get you, it's like free to so much, but of course, then like if you use them with any significant amount, then all of a sudden you have to pay for the next tier and the next tier and the next tier. And next thing you know is like I'm paying a lot of money each month.
Yeah. And then to connect this topic back to procurement, one of the things that I thought about is what does this mean for those of us or folks that are working some way in procurement or supply chain? And to me, I think there's kind of three big shifts that we have to look at. Module over monolith. So teams are curating a stack, things like sourcing, supplier data, contract lifecycle, P2P, spend analytics, tail spend tools. Then you've got the data layer, which is clean connected data and flowing this data bidirectionally in near real time through APIs and webhooks. And then the third bucket, I feel like, is continuous delivery. So that's typically a lot of companies, at least in my experience in the procure tech space, would do quarterly releases. So you kind of know a couple of quarters ahead of time what the different providers are planning and going to release. I feel like this would be a shift to much quicker product updates and releases where it's not such a big buildup. It's just things are constantly arriving on a weekly or monthly basis. So that's where my mind goes as to the big shifts of how this ties back directly to procurement.
Well, and I would add, so I agree with all three of those. And I would add, as we contract for goods and services, that is going to change too, because imagine you're buying PPE from an MRO supplier, and all of a sudden they want to charge you a monthly service fee so you don't get charged a delivery fee. So sort of imagine, like an Amazon Prime membership for a company. And whenever you need PPE, they'll deliver it, but you negotiate and you just pay that flat fee no matter what. And so I can see this making its way into the goods and services that we buy, because, and I'll go one step deeper. Look at consulting. Like, it's been built around projects. You want to do this implementation, you want to do this sourcing project, you want to do whatever, but I wonder if that whole model breaks and you pay sort of a monthly recurring or an annual recurring so that, the providers can forecast their demand.
And then my mind goes to, why is this happening now? Like, of all the times, like, why is this? Again, I'm kind of speaking to directly in procurement. Why are we seeing this? So I've got a few things that come to mind as to the why. One is speed to value. I think now more than ever, executive leadership expects that you're going to be able to show ROI quickly, and buying something and then 2 or 3 years later, being able to show value ROI is not going to cut it. So I think this pivot in the model will allow teams to stand out what I call best in class tools in weeks, instead of it taking, instead of it taking months or years.
Yeah.
I think compostability, so connecting point solutions that do one thing extremely well. So you've got, for example, solutions that excel in travel. You've got solutions that excel in packaging. Being able to connect those very specific niche solutions to a larger system and a larger, way to track and centralize your data, I think is appealing to some people. And then you've got easier to rip and replace if something doesn't work. So, I buy something, instead of prepaying $3 million for it, if I pay based on usage and I'm 6 months in and it's not going well, I can much more easily depart and kind of pull it out of our ecosystem versus something that's, embedded and is going to be really, really difficult to do.
Well, think about it on the consumer side. We have become acculturated to this idea that even if I buy an app, if it's not moving with me or doing what I need, I'll just delete it and I'll stop paying the annual or monthly fee. And so you can see that like, again, back to your first point about this interconnectivity and the ability to turn things on and off. That's a super important development. And I think the expectation is going to be, hey, value now. And this is why I think the monolithic systems, though it'll take a long time for the bigger the system, but ultimately, hey, if I can show value now, like, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, if you can show value in less than a month right now, I feel like that's a big win.
Yeah.
And then my fourth thing here is why it's happening now is, of course, I'd be remiss to not mention AI readiness. And I think SaaS apps embed for AI extraction, classification, and recommendations. So being able to leverage some of the recommendations and things that AI provides, caveating that AI only works if your data foundation is solid, if you have good, clean data that you're working from. But I think this model allows itself now better for AI readiness than things that are more end-to-end solutions that take months or years to get up and running.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of the costs or challenges, I want to make sure that we talked about, okay, what is it and why is it happening? And it's not all, perfect. And there's a lot of things that I think we need to talk about. My mind immediately goes to the data accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start increasing your tool count, you're buying more of these best-in-class solutions because you can do a webhook or an API integration. What does that mean for your data fragmentation?
Yeah.
And if you don't have a way to keep your data clean and normalize it and have a central source of truth and a single record, things can easily get out of control, and it could cause quite a nightmare and train wreck for your organization.
Yes. Yes.
So that's, I think, for folks working in procurement and are considering, I think it's really, really important to figure out your data model and how you're going to maintain and keep your data clean, because cyber, all of these security audit issues could quickly blow up in your face and cause a huge, huge board level issue if you don't figure the data model and governance out.
Yep. Yeah. And this is what I've been talking about lately, is that governance becomes a way of operating, not just a policy document that sits in a SharePoint site unread. And I think this is one of the potentials of AI, is how AI will allow us to set governance in a very operational way that we could never do. We could never programmatically do it because it would cost too much money and we'd have to figure out all the possible scenarios, whereas AI works with logic, and we can just say, all right, don't allow users to do this or that. And all of a sudden we now have a couple of constraints. So,
yeah. And I think the other thing from a consumer perspective, not just focusing on, procure tech play, is how do organizations keep consumer data private? And what are the rights of organizations in regards to what they maintain and what they're able to sell? And I think that's going to become just a huge, huge matter that's going to become a global concern. And I don't know that there's anyone that's figured that out or that will figure it out anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting into what I believe will require governmental legislation. And I would argue that my data is part of my being, so it's part of my human rights, or our data is part of each of our individual human rights. And so the idea that companies can just collect my data and then turn around and sell it,
It's creepy. It's like
it's
if I were to sit around and think about all the data that someone has on me, I don't know what I would do. It's scary, and I think there's more that people know about us than we probably care to even admit.
yeah, it's I don't like it either. And I'm sort of resigned to the fact, especially where you and I live, where everything's monetizable. But I also think that's where we get into some of these issues of, well, hey, let's just SaaSify everything or move everything to usage based, and damn the torpedoes. Here we go.
Mhm. So, where do you think we're going to land in? I think this usage pricing model is kind of what we're talking about. Um, Things could become highly competitive from a pricing standpoint, especially when it comes to pricing AI.
Yes. Yeah, that's where I was going in my head too. I mean, look at it again. I think I forget what OpenAI's. I'm just going to go off of OpenAI, where you can do it for free. You can do $20 a month, which is the one that I do, or like $200 a month. But there was a leaked memo last year of like that there would be an option for like $20,000 a month, and that would be a full-on AI employee. And so setting that aside for a second, but like as an individual, $20 a month is reasonable and fair, but also I'm paying that to Google too. And so yes, they're very reasonable independently, but it's like at some point I have to like be able to choose which one, or maybe the whole premise is I'll need multiple. And part of one of the things that LinkedIn's Pro subscription includes is an AI generator to help you with your posts and some other things. So like AI is making its way into all of these premium services. And at a certain point, like the question really, when you ask the question, I really go to, well, what's the switching cost? Because can I easily switch from Gemini to OpenAI and back? Probably, but can I ease? Well, I don't really have other options with LinkedIn, but I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves. And by the way, I used to be slight tangent, but this is actually relevant. I used to be a big Apple Music person because when I had ripped all my CDs, I had a massive library, and then I switched over to streaming them all. But their algorithm isn't great, and so I moved much more over to YouTube Music, and where the algorithm is so much better. So I am paying for music access on iTunes, but I don't use it at all. So
Yeah, the pricing thing, especially as it relates to AI and usage-based consumption, I think is going to be a really interesting thing to follow. There's a lot of AI startups coming into the market. The question, to your point, is you're right, how easy it is to switch between them. If you have 20 different providers and you can simply turn them on or off, how do you know how do they stay in business if it just becomes a pricing war? So there's got to be some point of differentiation.
well, and one of the things I cover in my master classes is that why are we writing prompts anymore? We just tell the AI what we want and have it make the prompts for us. And there are a whole bunch of AI startups that do AI, or that are AI prompt enhancers. And which is great until you realize, well, I can just do that in Gemini or OpenAI. And so then, yeah, like all of these, like the question becomes at some point, do the core platforms just build all this capability, and when they do that, it makes all of these whole ecosystem go away or become largely irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's talk about some other pitfalls to avoid. I think we should look at it as a consumer, and then also if I'm working in procurement and my company is thinking about or is pivoting to more of this SaaSification model, like what should we look out for? This is new. There's not a lot of best in class, I would say, to follow yet. So it's kind of in that figure it out as you go time.
Well, I think the first thing, and you hit on it earlier, keep track of all these things. That you're right, they add up, and there are things like, even as you made that statement earlier, I realized, oh yeah, I'm paying for a Vimeo subscription that I forgot to turn off, because it takes some time to make sure you get everything off, and like blah blah blah, and it's like, oh my god, like this is like these things, especially if you do games or in-app purchases, which is of course big. So some of these things, or like we bought a Paramount Plus subscription, and a couple other ones through Apple's.
Well, you have
Apple
to
TV.
if you want to watch Yellowstone. I was obsessed with the Yellowstone series, and it's on Paramount.
Yeah. I have to admit it. I haven't watched that. It was more for the South Park, but, but like, it's easy to forget that not only because it's an order of magnitude removed, because it's just going through my Apple subscription. If I'm not paying attention, it like all of a sudden renews.
Yeah. Like if you got a text message alert each month, would you pay more attention? Right? Would it be top of mind? You're like, oh wow, that was $20. What is that? Versus it's just kind of out of sight, out of mind.
And my fear is, so like that number one is keeping track of all this stuff, but two is actually making use of it, because how many times do we sign up for something and like I got a note from, oh, I also have HBO Max. See, there you go. Like, but I got an email from them saying, we haven't seen you lately. Would you like to try this, or that? And I mean, I only have so much time to consume content. But like, then it's reminding me, oh yeah, I have this whole other subscription that I haven't used lately. And so one of them is, you got to like use these things. But yeah, it's a brave new world. And where I'm really concerned, I think, is when the utilities, so we're in a big power shortage around the world, largely due to AI.
Thanks to AI, yep.
And poor infrastructure investment. Like, we have these smart meters now, and are they going to charge us to do recommendations? Or when they add water smart meters, or smart meters for water, and if you hit certain thresholds, like, because we're in a drought in California, it seems like we're always in a drought, like, will pricing change depending on that? And actually, my PG&E, or our electric rate, on weekdays between 4 and 9 p.m., because that's peak usage in the area, we pay more during that time, but we pay less in off-peak time. So I wonder if we're just going to get into this really micro targeting of cost.
Yeah. Factoring in usage time is really interesting, especially when it's mission critical things like power, like water, right? Like the internet. First.
Undoubtedly, that's going to come for, oh, you're going to stream video and download mega files. Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Some pitfalls, I think, to avoid from the procurement side of this conversation. I call it the shiny object syndrome, which I absolutely have in life. And, chasing the newest, coolest thing. I think it's important for folks to remember not to just add tools without a data owner and a clear set of rules and requirements and kind of a clear mapping out of what you're using and why you're using it. So just be very, very cautious of that. Another thing that I've noticed is do-it-yourself scripting. So you get some real tech-savvy people who will build something themselves, and they'll pilot it, but then you need to think about the long-term maintenance of it. So that can be great for a pilot, and you can test it out for a month or two, but how is that going to be maintainable and viable a year or 2 years from now? So if you are doing your own scripting internally or coding, just think about how that fits into the broader ecosystem and how everything is going to remain current and stay connected over time. And then something that I think is really important in my world, in the IT asset management space, and this is so important for folks in procurement, is don't ignore your internal downstream customers or consumers. So finance, security, and IT must trust the numbers. So if you're just going out and buying best in class and putting things together, and the other stakeholders don't believe it or don't trust it, you're not going to get very far. So let's not forget about that.
Exactly. I was thinking in your IT asset management, like in some ways, we need that for our personal lives because of all this proliferation of software that, or things that we buy.
Well, in my world, unified asset management, which is hardware and software, right, I think is really going to become an important model. We need to track our physical assets like cell phones and laptops, but then we also need to track everything that we're buying in the cloud to understand, to your point, what do we actually own? What's actually being used from a user and license and contract perspective. So I think it really is hardware asset management and software asset management. Both of those are very, very important.
Well, and as infrastructure becomes more of infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, it's very easy for the cost to go blowing up if you, when as we were talking about guerrilla marketing, all of a sudden something hits marketing wise, and you get completely overwhelmed, and so I think being able, like, you got to be cognizant of that, both in our personal lives, but also. Because how many times have we run out of storage, like on your phone with, like
we were trying to hit record for this show, and we ran out of storage in StreamYard because I don't go in and clean it up regularly.
Right. And so these are the things. And so all of a sudden, if you weren't managing that, like if like you and I, we pay for this. And so we're attentive to that. So, but if I was using a corporate card, I might just say, just upgrade to the next level. And we don't really need to keep the legacy recordings. And this gets into the like motivation. Is it just faster to say upgrade if you're not paying for it? And this gets to corporate purchasing and really being mindful of the corporate purse strings and what's my motivation. And so just to tie it back is like part of this asset management or unified asset management is usage as well, because we can very quickly run up a bill, especially in this AI world where, oh, you know what would be cool? I want to go do a bunch of Sora videos and all of a sudden I'm just churning through a lot of AI usage.
Or I buy 3 tools in one day, forget about 2 of them.
Yes.
I'm paying $100 a month, and I need to have visibility into what I'm paying for so I can cancel. Right. So there's the other piece as well of the things that are out of sight, out of mind versus heavy usage of one platform or one tool.
Exactly.
And then one other thing that I want to call out here is in this whole conversation around pitfalls to avoid for folks in procurement, it is so important to have a success narrative. What does this mean? To me, this means tracking what's actually happening and celebrate reductions in things like manual work, cyber prevention, risk prevention, audit successes. Like if you're not tracking this and don't have an easy way to celebrate and communicate this out, the value of things can quickly be forgotten and budget items can go away.
Yes. I think that's a great point.
And this ties back to personal as well as a consumer. To your point, if you went in, Dr. Eloise, that would be a fun exercise. Have you put all of your SaaSification expenses? I could do the same in a spreadsheet and we go through them. If you're not tracking ROI and you're going through an exercise like that, it's harder to do. And imagine that, doing that at a company where the dollar amount and the number of tools is significantly more.
I love it. We have to do that. Because I actually don't think it would be that hard.
No.
So, because while I listed out 20, 20, and we could compare what we pay, would be interesting. The other thing from a procurement point of view is how all of this usage gets tied into contracts. So again, let's say you're buying a stamping machine from, some manufacturer. Are they charging you this usage fee? Are they charging, did you buy an asset or did you buy an asset that has a monthly recurring cost to it? And
then how are you tracking that you're being billed correctly, right? You've got to tie it back to the terms in the contract.
And I just think, especially for these big CapEx purchases, because the manufacturers are going to do this more and more as they embed microprocessors into these tools, and then the data collection and then selling the data back to you. This is not a trend that's going away. And what happens if this company that I bought the stamping machine from actually then has a partnership with AWS and now can give me all these reports? Well, wait a minute. What if I want that data to go to Azure or Google Cloud? These are things we have to be attentive to in the contracts, because we're entering a brave new world of intellectual property, and a company's data is a company's data. And while what is it that what's that saying is, if you are not paying for the product, you are the product. Well, in the personal lives, in our corporate world, we pay for the product and they take our data and they sell it. So we get the worst of both worlds. And so really thinking that through in the negotiations and in your strategy is something I keep talking about, because this ultimately, the future is about IP ownership and protection.
It's going to get very, very messy.
Well, it is. And the US military has been struggling with this, because for many of their, I wrote about this in my book, or in my last book, that they can 3D print parts that they need, because they have equipment that's sitting idle because they can't get the parts, and they could 3D print them, but they don't own the intellectual property, which as a taxpayer drives me nuts. And I won't go into any political rant about that, but this is going to confront us more and more, because who owns the intellectual property, and also tractors. Then there's this great thing I referenced as well, this right to repair. And when you bought a tractor in the 1950s, it was a tractor and you could fix it if it broke. And if you buy a tractor today, like a farm combine, it's all computer software and electronics, very little mechanical. And so there's been a huge problem about farmers being able or not being or being prevented from fixing their tractors when they go down. And when they go down, if it's in harvest season, that's costing them a lot of money. And so and that gets to this whole IP, who owns it. And so that's been a lot in the news over the last few years.
Well, same with electric cars. Basic car people used to be able to service their cars or do basic things. Now, so much of it is electric, and in the cloud, it's like you can't easily deal with it yourself. So you have to take it in. And I don't own a Tesla, but I know that there's been major delays and issues with people, having to wait weeks or months to get servicing. And it's like, okay, well, if you need your car to get to work and you're down and out for weeks, I mean, that's a huge impact on your life and your livelihood.
And as a consumer, you can't get compensated for that. Hopefully, as a business, you might be able to. But again, this gets to what contractual terms you signed up for. But it really, like, you become at a captive audience to these providers. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying that it's a pitfall or a potential pitfall.
Well, and I think it's where the world is going. And so we all need to be aware of it and figure out how to handle it, because it's coming. Right. It's here. It's only gonna, I think we're gonna see more and more of it.
No doubt. And it's interesting because we get much more capability than we could have ever imagined, but also it is this brave new world. And I'm kind of like, I say that and I just want to close my eyes and just like scrunch my face, because it's like, there's something about it that makes me uneasy, even though I get it.
We'll have to circle back next year on this episode topic, like 6 months, and see what we've noticed, because I feel like things are changing and happening so quickly.
But I really just want to, when I buy something, I want to own it outright. And that's what really gives me the heartburn on this is, because I've bought a car and I can plug my phone into it, and the phone is so much a part of my life. So to have to pay a subscription fee, that's just like, and by the way, car makers tried to do this. Like, I remember my dad had a car that you'd have to bring it into the dealer every year to get the GPS updated, because they had to put a new CD in there or something. And that seems so silly now, but it would cost like $300 and a year. And it's like, why? And now, like, that seems silly, but it's the same idea coming back again and again.
Yep. All righty. Are we closing out the episode for the week?
We are, but we're gonna take the action item to match our monthly.
We're gonna open up our monthly expenses.
Actually, we should do that on our live stream episode at the end of the year. That'll be fun.
I'm kind of scared to do it, but I think it'll be a good. We'll have to see how much we can each total up that we can cancel. It'll be our end of year cost saving exercise.
Oh, I love that. We'll do it live.
Alrighty, that's the pod for the week. We will be back next Wednesday.